Marcus is an inspirational, motivational speaker, evangelist, and poet. Marcus was born and raised here in St. Petersburg, Florida. As a youth, Marcus found himself in trouble a lot. He says hanging out with wrong friends and making bad decisions that ultimately led to him dropping out of school and also leaving home at an early age of 16. Hit by the hard times of life at an early age, Marcus often found himself committing crimes that would often land him in jail on multiple occasions. With no role models or active mentors in life, Marcus found himself becoming a father at 19 years old, then again at 21. Marcus tells the story of how God protects his own when his best friend ends up putting a gun to Marcus' head to rob him of his money. He then pulled the trigger with the attempt to kill him. After the gun did not go off, Marcus said his life was spared by the grace and mercy of God. But only 4 months later, the tragedy struck again. When Marcus lost his 4-month-old baby boy in a house fire on Christmas Day, 2006. That's when Marcus said his life was turned around for good. He gave his life to Christ at his son's funeral, and since then, Marcus has been traveling, speaking in public schools, churches, youth camps, and nonprofit organizations. He is a 2-time Toastmaster local speaking champion and has earned his Competent Communicator Award for speaking. He's also featured on Fox 13 Tampa Bay for his mentoring ministry, which is Sweat for Success, which means speak words of encouragement today for the success you want tomorrow. Sweat is derived from the scripture Marcus said that changed his life, which is Ephesians 4:29. Speak words of edification, so that it lifts your brothers and sisters up and impact grace to those that hear. Let's all welcome our friend Marcus Clark.
I wrote that. How y'all doing?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's me. If y'all heard that, that was me. Back in 2006, 10 years ago, I was that guy. You know, I always like to say when I introduce myself, you know, when you're looking at me, you're seeing a well-dressed, put-together guy right now, but what you didn't see before this well-dressed, put-together guy was a guy who was a gangbanger, drug slinger, dope-smoking, gun-toting, tattoo attitude, doing crime, doing time. I didn't care with nappy hair. That was me. That was who I was 10 years ago, 2006. But I came to you today to show you the guy that came out of that because of where you're sitting there. I was sitting there also. And I pushed through from where I've come from. And I want to talk to you about that today. It's basically, I had to learn something to get me to even stand up here. What I learned is going to, if you want to get a pen and paper out, cool. But I'm basically here to just give you some principles to keep you going, keep you driving, keep you pushing forward to college because it's something that's important. So I like to say this. Anybody, right, can become famous, right? So I have this principle, it's called 15 minutes of fame. Anybody can become famous. Honey Boo Boo's famous. You know, the Duck Dynasty, those guys are famous. Remember the Jersey Shore cast, those people are famous. So anybody can become famous, right? But it takes a lot of fame to remain relevant. Let me repeat that again. It takes a lot of fame to remain relevant. I had to learn something that's called 15 minutes of fame I came up with, right? Now 15 minutes of fame is these 4 principles I had to learn. Because you look at Honey Boo Boo, Duck Dynasty, they're not relevant today. They're famous, but they're not relevant. They mean nothing to the market. So what did I have to do to remain relevant and still remain relevant today? Well, these fame principles I learned, 15 minutes of fame, I want you to understand. Focus. Focus determines your destiny. Attitude determines your feelings. Motivation determines how far you go. Education determines how far you grow. Okay? So what did I learn in that? Well, I did these studies, and I learned that this study says that 15 minutes a day, if you use 15 minutes a day, focus on anything that you're trying to accomplish, will save you 91 hours at the end of every year. It's like an hour and a half left to yourself every day, so you get to use that leisure time basically to go to the gym, read books, whatever you like to do. So for 15 minutes a day, I always tell people, hey, you need to spend 15 minutes on each one of these. That accounts for 1 hour. So if you're the type of person that gets up at 6, I'm going to tell you now, let's go back and get up at 5. Because I want you to spend 15 minutes, and I do this still every day. Every day I get up every morning, and I take 15 minutes of my day, and I get a list and a pen and a pad out. And I take this pen and pad. All these are essential to you in college right here. You got to understand this. Okay, this is for you where you're sitting at now. So for 15 minutes a day, I take a pen and a pad out. And I write down what it is I need to put on that list to get done for that day. Not tomorrow, but for that day. And I set a timer for 15 minutes. When that timer goes off, I stop writing. Because I don't care what I didn't get on the list that I wanted on the list. Because by tomorrow, I get better at focus now. I get more determined at what it is I need on that list. Because I'm already thinking about it today. I'm like, man, I didn't get this on the list, so tomorrow I know what I want now. And you get more sharp at your focus. You know, they did a study that said 660,000 car wrecks happen each year. And I have to understand, I have to wonder why. Why is 660,000 car wrecks happening each year? Well, because of distraction. Distraction is what? It detours you from your destination. You ever drive on the interstate and you go too far past your destination, you exit? Because of what happened? You got distracted. Billboards, writing, texting, reading, eating, making your face up. All that. You get distracted. So when you get distracted from your destination, it's because when you get distracted you get detoured from your destination, it's because you become distracted. Okay? So you have to spend 15 minutes a day, and I still do this every day. You know, I still do this. I have to spend 15 minutes on my focus. So I'm focused on what it is I want to get done for that day. For 15 minutes, you want to make sure that your attitude, you're channeling where your attitude is. You know, I read, everything here is related to studies, right? 15 minutes a day to focus on your attitude. For some people, that may be prayer. Okay? You're going to get up one day and you ain't going to want to come to school. But it's through your persevering and your willpower when you get up here and do this. You understand what I'm saying? So I had to change my attitude about what it was I didn't want to do. You understand? So when I changed my attitude about the things I didn't want to do, what happened? You know, I got up every morning. They say for 5 minutes, they say when you wake up every morning, the first 5 minutes of your day, what you listen to, read, or watch will affect your attitude. The first 5 minutes. So I'm always cognizant of what it is. But when I wake up in the morning, I don't go to the computers. I don't go to my phone. I don't go to Facebook, whatever. For the first 5 minutes, when I wake up, I make sure I hit my knees and I pray. That's for some of us. I pray. But also I add to that. I read a daily devotion. 15 minutes. I'm spending working on this attitude changing mine. You know, because there's things I didn't want to do. You're not going to want to come to school. But you're going to have to understand, keeping this practice will change your attitude about everything. And what's going to happen in that? In that same 15 minutes, I'm doing what I call a mental closet clean out. You know why? Because in your physical closet, there's some things that don't fit you, right? And those things that don't fit you, what do you do with those things that don't fit you? You exchange them out. Why? They don't fit you anymore. You've outgrown them. In my mental closet up here, there's some people that don't fit me anymore, that I have to change out. I can't change them, so I must exchange them, because they don't fit me and where I want to go. So for 15 minutes, I'm mentally cleaning out my closet. Who doesn't speak positive in my life? Who around me is negative, feeding me negative thoughts, negative things? Because remember they said that one negative stroke takes 16 positive strokes to eradicate it from your mind. So I'm always thinking, who in my life is just speaking negative? And I got to get rid of them because they don't fit for where I'm trying to go. I've outgrown them. You understand? I don't fit them. They don't fit me. So I have to, since I can't change them, I must exchange them. And it's the same thing with your physical closet. Clothes in your closet you don't fit anymore, you got to exchange out for things you do fit, that do fit. You know, because back when I was on the street corners and all that stuff he said about me was true. I was an gangbanger, drug dealer, toting guns all around. Grew up on the south side over here. Lost my son to a tragic house fire on Christmas Day. That changed my life. Okay? But then I had to think about, there are some things I wanted to do. You know, that was 10 years ago. But there's some things now today I want to do. Okay? So I had to figure out something else. My motivation factor. What became my motivation factor? Well, my son became my motivation factor. For 15 minutes a day. Everything, 15. Because they said it saves you time at the end of the year. So 15 minutes a day, I'm thinking, what motivates me? Well, I have a picture of my son. I'm watching my son, talking to my son, knowing my son died for me. Knowing my son died to save my life. So I can get up here and do this today. You know, now I've started a nonprofit. Now I own a filtering business. And I did that when I was going to school. I went to school for youth professional development. Now I'm speaking all over the place. and I became the 2-time inspirational speaking champion. Fox 13 recognized me. Numerous amounts of, newspaper clippings I got, half-page articles written about my life because I got out here and just got motivated by the fact that I didn't want to see another young male or another young woman go through what I went through. I didn't want to see it happen, so I got back out here and I started to give back to the young life out there. And I formed this nonprofit called Sweat for Life. It's speak words of encouragement today for one life to be saved. So I go out and I mentor young kids because I don't want to see another young kid who wasn't like I was on the corners at 16 years old, dropped out of high school. I didn't have mentors come back for me. And I didn't want to see that happen with the young kids. So for 15 minutes a day, what motivates me? Well, listen, they say this, right? It takes 21 days to form a habit. They say, but most people break that habit within 15 days. So a lot of people give up 6 days before the goal is even completed. Before you take anything you want to make a habit, you give up at 6 days. A lot of people do that. They give up, the New Year's resolution people. They give up 6 days out from the goal, making this thing a habit. What happens though? I always like to say, what motivates a person to run? I run 3 miles. Let me tell you something. It's grueling. I don't like to run 3 miles. People run 26 miles at the Boston Marathon. I have to ask myself, what makes this person run 26 miles? And you ever seen them on YouTube? They're crawling to the finish line. There's no gold medals, Olympic gold medals for that person. There's no $1 million cash prize for that person. Why are they running and killing their body like that? So they can go back home and say, I did it. Motivation factor. They just want to say, I ran a Boston Marathon. Why do people climb Mount Everest, risking life and death, knowing that at the top of Mount Everest? Let me tell you something about Mount Everest. I do a study on Mount Everest, and knowing I'll never climb Mount Everest. But all of these things, I'm telling you all these because they apply to you in school. Okay? Know that. When I saw this study on Mount Everest, Mount Everest is at 29,000 feet, right? This is the peak of Mount Everest right here. So at 27,500 feet, now that's 1,500 feet from the 29,000 mark, there's a flat area. And they call that flat area the sleeper of death or the death zone. Why? Because at that flat area, a lot of people get there and they rest. And when they get there and they rest, what happens? The oxygen level up there is so thin that their brain cells cannot reproduce fast enough to tell them they're suffocating. So they die because they sit. And that's what happened to a lot of you guys' dreams. They die because you sit there on it and you don't continue to move. It takes motion. And you got to move. And you got to move. And you have to move. A lot of people die on Mount Everest 1,500 feet away from the top. A lot of people give up 6 days away from the goal. A lot of people give up when they're right there. They stop moving and the dreams die because of suffocation. You're sitting there and they can't breathe. So what happens? You have to keep them moving, keeping life into them. If people just keep moving on Mount Everest, they'd have made it to the top. But those who sit there die. Again, the air is so thin up there, their brain cells are not able to reproduce fast enough to say, hey man, you're suffocating and you need to get up and move. They don't know that. So they sit there like this, frozen to death, literally. Right? And a lot of dreams happen like that. They get frozen to death. They die at a standstill. Okay? And that's what I want you to understand. Don't go through college only to be like, I'm done. You know, I have to reiterate this point again. It's going to be through your persevering. You're going to want to give up. You're going to want to say, I'm done, it's over, it's it, I don't want no more of it. But through the persevering and the consistency, let me tell you something, every day, Ginger can vouch for this. Every day, I post for the last year, actually just 2 days ago was made 1 year. Every day I posted a daily inspirational post on Facebook. Anybody that followed me was getting a daily inspirational message from my words. I'm a poet also, and my poet name is Mark My Words. And everything on Facebook was my words. Now I turned that, transcribed all of that from 1 year into a book, which will be out in November. I'm not here to sell anything, but what I'm saying is, it was my consistency. There was mornings I didn't want to get up and do that. But my consistency to say, I want this book though. My consistency and my persevering, I pushed through. And I was like, I want this book. And it was the willpower through my persevering. I got to have this book. I got to have this diploma. I got to have this degree. I got to have this trophy. I got to have whatever. I got to have this job. I push. Motion, moving. Something has to motivate you. Find out what motivates you. Because that's what I do every morning. I look at my son. I say, son, I know you died for me and I'm going to continue to go for you. I'm not going to let you have died in vain. Because if I give up, then he died in vain. Because I made a commitment to give my life to serve people and be better for him. And if I give up, then he died in vain. I'm not going to let that happen. That's my motivation. In fact, and the last thing, education. You know what I'm saying? I spent 15 minutes. Listen, whatever you're going to school for, it doesn't stop and start right here. There are other avenues out there that if you're serious about growing, if you're serious about getting to where you want to go to, if you're serious about making it to the next level, then there are other avenues. What do I do for 15 minutes on my education? Because education determines how far you grow. What do I do for 15 minutes? Now for 15 minutes, after everything else is done, now I get on the internet. Now I'm researching where it is I can find to be a better speaker at. I'm studying speakers. I read about speakers. I learn from speakers. I go to speak. I'm in a speaking club. Okay? I go and find other avenues to be a better speaker. Right? I don't just wait till I get to school and say, this is where I'm going to learn my speaking skills at. No. I go to speaking seminars, workshops. All these things where I can find from other speakers that are good, better than me, been doing it longer than me. I get out there and I follow those guys. I read their books. I learn from them. I listen to the cassette tape, the audio CDs. I listen to those things to be better. And you have to understand, it doesn't stop and start with school. So whatever it is you're going for, understand there are more avenues. There are workshops out there. You have to look for them. There are networking groups out there. You have to look for them if you're serious about getting there. There are seminars out there. You have to look for them. They're only going to show up if you're looking for them. You know, so if you don't look for them, they won't show up on your radar. You understand? So you have to understand, education determines how far you grow. All right? So I spend 15 minutes of fame. That's my 15 minutes of fame. Don't try to be famous. Because everybody that I just named you that was famous, when they Google them, they're not relevant today. They're not relevant. You want to remain relevant? Listen. Steve Jobs is famous by happenstance. That's just because he made a great product. But can I ask you something? I just found this out the other day. Can you name me the guy who made 5-hour energy? Nobody can. But the man is a billionaire. And I was just looking at that the other day like, how? You don't know what he looked like. He's an Indian man. Don't know what he looked like. Don't know who he is. But why? Because the man didn't care about being famous. He would care about a great product. He cared about getting something that was better for the people out there. And you're going to have to do the same thing. Okay? I want to do this for you guys. I want to end this off with a poem because every time I speak, I have to end this off with a poem. I do spoken word, but today I'm going to do a poem. My poems are more shorter. And this is basically for you. Okay? Understand this, that it's going to take a lot of courage. And courage in the Latin language just means heart. And the spell, C-O-U-R, and that means core. So when we say core means what? Center. Think of a core of an apple. Okay? Center of an apple is the core of an apple. And core means center in the Latin language. Core is short for courage. So you're going to have a lot of courage. And I like to say this and end this off with this poem by saying, courage is to act in spite of fear. It is to go and deny your peers. Courage is to move on ideas and thoughts. It is to not look back and relive our faults. Courage is to stand and make a statement. It is to be real without ever faking. Courage is to jump directly into darkness. It is to not know, but you still keep walking. Courage is to try in fear of danger. It is to forgive when emotions call for anger. Courage is to have a passion and also a drive. It is to not give up on the things that make you thrive. Courage is to live, knowing we all gotta die. So make the choice today and say no more living a lie. Thank you.